It's good to have fun, it's good to have pleasure, it's good to enjoy life, but it's also good to think about the choices you make and think about how you can bring, as Gandhi used to say, the change you want to be in the world.
Welcome to the Rogue L&D Hot Shots podcast, a short podcast allowing you to meet some of the brilliant folk driving people performance and development forward in an informal and human way. My name's Tom Bailey, award-winning L&D leader and passionate maverick for all things development. Join me as I ask just 10 questions of some of the industry's most innovative and interesting people. Tell us about yourself.
Hello, my name is Jean-Marie Guitera. I'm the CEO of a company called Cognant AI. Our objective is to help humans live and work better using AI. As you might have guessed, I'm originally from France, from Paris, and I've been living in Australia for 20 years.
What are you passionate about?
Having learning and development that is interactive, immersive, where people learn without having the feeling that they have to do the learning. As a human nature in general, when you have to do something and you make it painful and pretty unappealing, it makes people life hard and they resent it. If you make it a nice, immersive experience, interactive experience, then that becomes a treat. And I think that we should always aim at delighting people. It's not because you're doing something complex that it has to be boring. On the contrary.
What's the best L&D you've seen?
Yeah, so, obviously after saying that, I think that there's some games which are really the best example I've done. It is an art, and I spend quite a few time doing those because I used to call games the MetaMedia, because you have all other medium in there. You have movies, you have storytelling, you have it is really complex, but then it gives you so much more tools to use. And in terms of learning and development in that space, I think that some of the games we did as a company, some of the really interactive, and nowadays I think that we're going to see a new generation of learning where AI is playing a key role. It was always something that was missing. So 20 years ago, I looked into creating the first virtual coaching software, and technology simply was not there. You couldn't have the natural language processing layer. You couldn't have a natural conversation with a machine. No, you can. And they can do a lot more, that's true. But this first step is making content so much more sticky and interactive that I think we're going to see learning and development like never before.
Favorite hand gesture?
My family comes from Corsica, which is, in the south, so we use hands a lot. So this one's a bit complex because it used to be the thumbs up. And then I realized that thumbs up when you do diving doesn't mean anything, because that means that you have to go up. And being okay is a different hand sign, it's this sign. So I think my favorite hand sign is this one now, but interestingly, it also showed me that everything is a question of perspective.
One thing you didn't learn?
There's so much things I didn't learn, but I don't know what I don't know, so it's hard to answer that question. I guess if you mean what I learned without formal learning, music is probably that space. So I had quite a few, I would say, tentatives or, trial at learning music the formal way, but I think I'm a bit dyslexic. I'm dyslexic in terms of music, so I could never learn music the classic way. And so it's just by hearing and then, playing. So again, going back to playing, I kind of learned some music, but I couldn't get the notes, and I still struggle between the cycle of fifth and all that. So,
proudest moment?
I've been lucky enough to have a few happy moments in my professional life. I was the head of marketing of a company that we stock listed on the Paris stock market. I managed to launch a fragrance at L'Oreal and convince the vice president to do it when he was pretty reluctant. And, with our game company, we had the Australian EMEA award. So there's been a few good moments that sense in terms of professional, but yeah, I guess the personal part is always the one, your kids, and they're pretty successful, so that's great.
Worst experience in L&D?
I'm going to take a slightly different tack on this. I think e-learning, for most of it, is very boring. And I think that one of the reasons I created games and subversive games is that I was convinced, and there's a lot of science showing that people don't really pay attention, are not engaged. It's going back to what we said earlier about the fact that you are doing something because you have to, and it shows. So, I'm old enough that I saw the very beginning of e-learning, and e-learning had a lot of promise, but very soon it was just paper put online, and there was no better way to do it. There was no trying to make it interesting, to make it personable, to make it, an experience that people enjoyed. And I think that's the opportunity with AI nowadays, and it's the same difference that, you have a book at home and you're alone versus you have this great mentor or teacher. And I think we've all been lucky. I mean, most of us have been lucky to have some great teachers, and they make things come alive. So how can we make knowledge come alive for people? That's our challenge, I think. And I must say it's a challenge that e-learning per se doesn't do. And, it's okay, we have to talk about micro-learning, about this, about that, videos, yes, but it's not, it is getting better, it is more interactive, but it's not getting to that kernel where you really have this deeply interactive, and your brain lights up. When your brain lights up, you remember, you're happy, you're excited, you want to do more.
Best celebrity moment.
When I was working in video games, I was lucky enough to meet with Jean Giraud, aka Moebius, who's one of the best science fiction writer of, we say bande dessinée in French, but comics. And he's the guy who inspired the Fifth Element, for example. And I was lucky enough to meet with him because we might have been working on a game with him. So that was really exciting. The other one is a bit more left side, but there's a great writer and I would say activist called Cory Doctorow. And I really like some of his books. And I was at Burning Man, as you go sometime, and he was doing this little talk in front of maybe 50 people. And, you're in the desert, it's all sandy, and you have this guy that talk about the enshittification of internet and explain how the guys from Facebook were in that same spot 10 years ago saying they will never sell you data. So that was also a very interesting moment for me.
Something not many people know about you.
There's a story that people don't know because it was a long time ago. So when I finished my business school, I was in Paris, and then I really wanted to do something in art. I was very close to lots of artists and designers. I'm not an artist myself, but had lots of people in that space. So we decided to create a place that would be a kind of a supermarket of new creation with lots of young artists. And we called it Code Bar, which is a barcode, but there's a pun with it. And so we started this association, this nonprofit, where we would have, for a full weekend, we had 40 to 50 young creators and artists. And we did that for 5 years. It became quite famous. And, we had crazy people coming. So there was painter, all kind of designers. So I think that this kind of melting pot of art was really exciting. And then we can get some cool stuff. So we were the first one 30 years ago to have some computer arts from the Parsons School of Design. We had some really cool band coming and play. We had fashion shows and all that. So I think that this is something that was really cool at the time. And not many people know that I was doing that a long time ago.
Best advice.
I'm a big believer in the Ikigai, and that's something we really want to implement front and center in our application. I believe it's a very strong concept, and the modern day visualization through the Venn diagram, with the mission, passion, and all that, has spoken to me a lot. It has helped and guided me when I was not really sure where to go. And I find that this is a great tool for people to be able to center themselves, to define what is their moral compass, but also what makes them happy, And we always know that in life there is a balance between what makes you happy and what you need to do. I think it's good to then remember that, what does the world need you for is a pretty important, especially nowadays, especially when you're, privileged, and especially when you know that the planet is not going well. So, do you need one more sweater? Do you need to have 55 pair of shoes? Do you absolutely need this and that because, you've read in a podcast, it was great? I think that with being human, there's a challenge. Obviously, we all know Maslow's pyramid, and if you have to fight for the basics, then the challenge is unfortunately often simple, though it's not always the richest person which are the more generous. But as soon as you go from this place and you have a certain freedom and quite a bit of means, and fortunately in Australia, in Europe, in the US, you're often in that position, then it is important, I think, to try to use tools as the Ikigai, or at least keep in your mind the notion that it's good to have fun, it's good to have pleasure, it's good to enjoy life, but it's also good to think about the choices you make and think about how you can bring, as Gandhi used to say, the change you want to be in the world. I think that's a long-term vision of happiness for you and for the one you love, because we basically are just in this world for a small time, and then our kids and other kids, we need to leave them a place that's also happy. So
thank you to our guest and to you for listening. If you want to boost the impact of your organisation's people development practices, I'd love to connect. You can find me at thomasbailey.co. Alternatively, you can look me up on LinkedIn.